Truth Bombers Podcast.
Truth Bombers Podcast.
The group chat turned podcast with your hosts, Russ, Lockie, and BJ.
Russ, fresh off the golf course today, mate. Look at you.
Yep. I wish.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Very good.
Good. It's always nice to catch up on a Monday after a win, as opposed to just having another weekend ruined by the Essendon Football Club.
Absolutely. Yeah, for someone who has a lot of Essendon supporters in the office, it's a few happier faces around today. We normally send around a meeting room and try and discuss how we're going to get through the week or how all the issues. So I see some smiling faces first thing on a Monday.
How many times have we watched the replay / the KO / just the last quarter?
One replay, 2 KOs, and the AFL replay, which is a little bit longer than the KO mini.
That is next level. I only watched the fourth quarter replay.
Yeah.
I watched the fourth quarter, I watched the mini, and then I watched a lot of the playback from our little session on the couch. And I know I sent you boys a couple of clips, but it was hilarious. So I think the key with those is, and obviously Russ, and a month away for you, but a couple of drinks. It's nice to see everybody in a nice close game, everybody getting a little bit animated.
Loose and fired up.
Yeah.
Some lubricant.
All right, boys, let's do it. 3 words. What have we got, Locke?
Wallpaper over cracks.
Russ? Yeah, I do like that one.
There's a chance.
There's a chance. I had about bloody time. So some good things. Let's get straight into it. Obviously, we had a win, which is always a good thing. But obviously, as well, we've been talking a lot about how annoying it is when we've seen, the kind of rubbish we've been serving up. No effort, no run, no real contested footy, no desire to tackle. And particularly that last quarter. I think we had 25 tackles for the fourth quarter, which is basically more than we had against Fremantle for an entire game. So for me, that was probably the biggest good, is that we finally turned it on. But at the same time, like, it even annoys me that we can do it, but we just don't, right? Don't all jump in at once.
Russ, you're the first man.
The effort was definitely there. And, going into the game, I guess everyone, all Essendon supporters heard the 5 outs and you thought, geez, game's over. But, it just proves what effort can do, what tackles can do, and the things we've been screaming about for the last, 7 rounds, that, a little bit of pressure goes a long way. That tackle count goes up, and look what happens. We get over the line. It was an ugly game. I don't think we won off, great coaching or systems. It was just pure gut and pure fight for a bunch of blokes that we got in last minute and played their hearts out with nothing to lose.
Yeah, so the reason I said wallpaper over the cracks is because I thought it was a great win under the circumstances.
Yeah.
But we're still 2-6. And if we lose the next 2, I think we're in the same situation where it's like, fuck, we're 2-8. This is nowhere near what we expected pre-season. It'll be interesting if they get some confidence from the win and that galvanizes the group, and the game style that we saw a little bit of versus the Hawks can grow and be a bit more of the norm rather than the 7 weeks before that, what we saw.
Yeah. It looked like there was times when we actually looked good, like McGrath and Hind and Redmond, like getting the ball D50 and not just like looking to go wide or give or slow down, but just run and just see what happens. I think the Hawks did us a huge favor by like kicking like shit for goal. Like they could have been 5 or 6 goals ahead pretty easily at quarter time. And I think there was even one point in the third quarter when they went 24 points up, and Locke, you were like, I can see this getting out to 60 points. Yeah. But it just goes to show, like, the skill wasn't there, but we've sort of said I'll happily accept skill errors and being fumbly and making mistakes if the effort is there, and the effort was there. And at the end of the day, like, we came away with one. I think when you do have that perceived pressure, even if it's ugly and fumbly, that it goes a long way to disrupting other teams' game plans. right?
Yep, absolutely.
I had to go past Peter Wright as well in terms of good. He just goes from one strength to another, I reckon. It's another
Yeah, his kicking is just so elite. Like me and Lockie were saying during the live cast, like the way he just sets up behind the ball, there's none of this sort of tiptoeing or sidestepping. He's just straight in front of the goal, even 55 out, just straight through the middle. Like never looks like missing. And when his set shots are on, he doesn't miss.
That, you know, that one that he kicked from outside 50 on the run is his first goal that hasn't been a set shot this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice. I think Bill was saying it's kind of nice to have someone who takes a mark and you're like confident that they're going to kick the goal, right?
Yeah.
For a very long time. I thought even as well, Francis, like I can definitely see him actually playing as a forward up there with Peter Wright. They got in each other's way a little bit. There's obviously going to be some time that goes into understanding how to play off each other, communication, that sort of thing. But I thought Francis looked really good. And, you know, probably the other thing about Wright, not just his goal kicking, but he was just hard at the ball. Like every contest, he was just, if he wasn't getting the ball, he wasn't just bringing the ball down. He was like taking the pack out with him. It was awesome. Awesome to see.
Yeah. The first time that I've felt like he's played like a big forward, crashing packs, leaping for all of his marks, and he clunked a number of them. And obviously, we just talked about his set shot, but yeah, like what a crisp action where it just looks everything just gun barrel straight. And obviously, that's great to set you up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah, echo what Locke just said. He didn't look like that at the start of the season. The first game, or a little bit in the first game, but not so much. He just looked like he was still not quite there, especially in the preseason games and the practice matches. I was quite critical. He didn't look like a forward. He doesn't look like he was, breaking through packs. He was getting out muscled by sort of mid-sized defenders. Then I always said I think he's a confidence player, and I think their confidence has finally kicked in. And look what he's doing is breaking through packs, and let's just hope it keeps going through. And he had a couple of lame weeks and it didn't bring his confidence down, which is good to see. He had a couple of weeks of sort of not getting too much. And, we've been pretty critical with the entries into 50. I think it goes a long way to show you if, like we've been saying the last couple of weeks, if you just play him in that position, don't make him run up the field and do the rucking work and then run back. Just let him be a forward. Look what happens. That time last year, we kicked 7 goals. It was the first game that we just played him as a forward for a long time, kicked 7. We're finally bringing another ruckman to chop him out. Bang, look at what the game solely has. So let's just hope we keep playing 2 ruckmen, not rely on him.
I thought Nick Bryan, like his inclusion was super helpful and for that exact reason. Like, we sort of said this year, for Wright, if he kicks 40 goals, like he's probably had a really good year and, he needs to kick his 1 or 2 every week to keep his spot in the team. And the reality is if he can just play forward, he's not kicking 1 or 2, he's kicking 6 or 5, Straight. Like he only needs 5 chances to really like kick a bag, right? And that also comes from he's getting the ball in better spots and he's getting better looks, right? Rather than like this shit out on the pocket that you're crossing your fingers and hoping there's no breeze. So I think there's a lot of good in that. Any other good? Anything else anyone wants to throw in there before we move on? Forward hand passing was nice to see.
Russ is on mute, I reckon.
There was a stat just up on the couch about Zach Merritt in the second half, taking him out of more center clearances and playing him a little wider. And he went from like 18 touches in the first half to only 10, but went from 3 score involvements to 7 or 8 and kicked a goal too, right? So it looked like the plan was just fucking get it forward. And maybe that's what happens when the pressure's off at the start of the game with some big outs like that. Right. It's like, see what happens. We've got nothing to lose now.
Nick Martin continues to impress me every single week. Consistently the score involvements, his vision, his composure for a guy that's, like we keep saying, wasn't even on the list at Christmas time. You never know that he's not like below 10 games. I think he's super important. I reckon he'd have to be pretty close to leading the Crichton, I reckon, with, his consistency and score involvements.
Yeah. Archie Perkins, the same. Like,
Yeah.
he's becoming very much one of those players. Like, you don't need to get 25 touches. And every time he gets the ball too, we talked about how nice it is to have a player with confidence, not arrogance. He's genuinely one of the only guys that wherever he gets the ball, he's looking inside, like he's looking back in the corridor, and he's willing to try to take off some of those 45-degree angle kicks to bring us back into a more attacking position. And then that goal that he kicked in the fourth, like that sealer, had Dev Smith over the top for a handball, and he just like happy to take the responsibility on for himself, you know, on himself. And the more that he does that and keeps capitalizing, the more he's going to do that and keep capitalizing, right?
Another good, I reckon, for me, he's got a lot of stick this year, which I think is a bit unjust because I think he's playing tough footy, but Red Dog, I think, really stepped up a little bit. You know, we talked about that run off the half back. He had that run. It was a bit stiff not to get that goal. Running past 50 out after that.
Fourth, Peter Wright. Yeah.
Peter Wright, soft free kick. Like, I've never seen anything like that before being paid anyways. And just his penetrating kicks and actually hitting targets on the run as well. I've been pretty critical of the boys, not like, the looping handballs over people's heads and hospital kicks and those floating up balls from they pop up and then the defenders have time to actually come by and actually cut them off. I thought as a team, we were kicking better, actually hitting some targets and penetrating inside 50 for a little bit better than we have been for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Rock, anything else to add?
Well, Benny, I was going to say we're pretty much covered anyway, but do you want to do the 3-2-1 and then go to the bad and ugly?
Yeah, perfect. So my best on, like, hard to go past Peter Wright for me. So he was definitely my best on. And then I kind of came to a point where I was like, do you give to someone who was like consistent through or someone that was a little bit flashy? So my 2-1 definitely up for debate, but I thought that, and I've written this down, if Shield kicks those 2 goals, he's probably almost best on. But at the same time, like a bloke that's on as much coin as he is, to miss, I think that shot, I think it was the third quarter, when he got the 50, was like 25 out directly in front and missed. And that was like game in the balance kind of stuff too.
That was last quarter.
Was it last quarter?
Yeah, and we were down by 4 points.
Yeah, oh, that's right. It was for the lead, wasn't it? Yeah. Like, it can't happen. And I'm going into the bads, but Baldwin the same. Like, he was directly in front quarter time. Like, we talk about a team that sometimes started opportunities. Can't get those go past. But I thought Shield was definitely in there. And Hind, I think just the way that he was willing to just ball underarm run and see what opened up in front of him. I think a lot of that actually forced the rest of the team to get back into a more attacking position quite quickly rather than just kind of lope all the way through. So Wright, Shield, and Hind for me. Russ.
I'll go. It's hard to go past 2 meter for the 3. I went Nick Martin for me, went for my 2 marks, just consistency, and had a couple of lots of score involvements, a couple of goals. And then I went with Red Dog. Similar to the reasons why you voted for Hines, why I went for Hines for Reds. You're just looking for opportunity to go forward. I thought it was a little bit more clinical than Hines for me, so I went with Red Dog.
I like those. I thought it was a very clear Peter Wright 3, Nick Martin 2 for me. And I'll throw a few names at you for 1. I had Redman, I had Hind, I had Parrish, Merritt, and one guy who does deserve a shout out, I think, was Heppel. I was
going to talk about this. I'm glad you said that.
Well, I'm the first to always crucify him for a poor game or if I feel like he hasn't stood up as a leader. I thought he had a game that was a bit more influential than what we've seen all year. And he can have his 20-25 and do nothing, or he can have 20-25 and it's like, yeah, that was a steady hand off halfback, gets a little bit more damaging in his possessions, a little bit harder around the contest, and that's what I'm looking for.
So, Lockie, I thought you'd like these, mate. Dyson Heppel, 25 touches, 14 kicks, 11 handballs. Zach Merritt, 28 touches, 13 kicks, 15 handballs. And Darcy Parish, where is he? probably right at the top. 32 touches, 16 and 16. So you look at like how much of a difference. Like those guys were 2-1, 3-1, even almost the last couple of weeks. All of a sudden, we kind of joked that Parrish like kicked that first goal and then came straight off with a sore foot because his foot's been so deconditioned in terms of actually kicking the ball this year. And Merritt the same, like get forward, use your boot, and you end up both of them kicked a goal. I think that's the first goal either of them have kicked for the year. It's round 7, Yep. All right, so we got 2 meter for 3 votes. I'm happy with Nick Martin for 2. I thought he was pretty good. And then Russ, you happy with Hind for 1?
Yeah, I'll go Hind 1. Yeah,
easy.
I'll take that.
All right, the bad, dude, the umpiring. Watch the game again.
Whoa! We haven't got the ugly yet.
Put it in there as well. I've got a question for you boys. Is Devin Smith our Toby Green? In what I mean that there's a set of rules that applies to the game, and then there's a set of rules that applies for Devin Smith in that the umpires are more willing to look a blind eye at him being put down behind play, ragdolled around, unfairly treated, as opposed to anyone else on the field. That Peter Wright one, where he just moved Frost out of the way, where Redmond's goal was disallowed. The wing contest, like a couple of minutes before that, that actual, I think it was with Granger Barras, the ball is in the umpire's hand. Barras grabs Devin Smith by the back of the collar, puts him on the ground. The umpire looks at Devin Smith and then throws the ball up before Smith has even had a chance to get to his feet, right?
He's almost standing over him. We're doing it too.
2, Smith retaliates and hits Granger, tackles Granger Barras on a dead play. Nothing like untoward about the tackle. If it had been still in play, it would have been a completely fine tackle. And as they're remonstrating and they get up, the umpire warns Devin Smith that he's pushing it. Like, is there a set of rules for Dev and a set of rules for everyone else on the ground, or what?
Yes, there is. I think he's hard done by, but at the same time, he's a little shit. And he's always chirping at the umpires. He's always on the edge, like, of giving away a free kick. And I think that the umpires honestly just get sick of it. And without saying they are biased, subconsciously they are.
Yeah,
it's human nature. Like, if something pisses you off,
it's his own fault, is what we're saying.
For it.
It's his fault.
Yeah.
But it does get frustrating when it's like him thrown to the ground is such a clear free kick and it doesn't get paid. But a minute later, like, he gives away a free kick and it's like, come on, like, just keep it 50-50. If you're not going to pay one, don't pay the other.
That's the thing.
That was the whole night, though.
Go, Russ.
The whole night that was happening. Like, we were talking about how we never paid the in the back because we got, I think it was in our 50, someone tackled clearly from behind, drove one of our players into the ground in our 50, nothing, ball up. And then literally 30 seconds later, we're on our half back line. The same thing happens and it's a free kick towards. We got paid for, hands in the air and, descent. I couldn't, like, every single play after that, I think a free was paid. There was hands in the air from the opposition, like, all night long. Yet when our hands were in the air, it was a joke at how much it was just one play for them, one play for us.
The Peter Wright one and the Frost one is interesting because it's like, if something like that has zero impact on the play at all, right? Like, Redmond's kicked the ball before that's happened. The ball's in the air. The ball sails well over the goal line, right? Like, that indiscretion, that back and forth, that wrestle, nullify each player if Frost doesn't go to the ground. There's no impact on the actual outcome of the play in that situation. The other one too, which was interesting, when a player has a 30-second is lining up for goal in their forward 50, I think it was Kaczynski, was 30 out and someone went through the protected zone. How is it still a protected zone if he's not going to go left or right because he's taking his 30 seconds to shoot a goal? Like, should that be a 50 meter?
No, you still got the protected zone in the 50.
That's ridiculous. I thought the protected zone is you've only got 5 seconds to play it off. You can't have but he's taking a full 30 seconds.
Yeah, but to say, when you go on for a snap, everyone, you get your protected zone. And the same, like, look at who's the Carlton player that always
Harry Mackay.
Yeah, Harry Mackay always does his snapshots from 50 out on straight in front.
Seemed a bit bullshit to me.
But then when it happens to us, they literally gave the player every possible second to get out of the protective zone before they had to call it about 5 minutes later.
Yeah. All right. Some other bads. Kane Baldwin kicked a good goal in the last quarter, but like the one he missed. And again, like did a couple of things where you're like, okay, like I can sort of see what they see. And there's probably some potential there. But I think again, and obviously he was omitted and came back in with the injury. He's not ready in my eyes. I think the role that they're getting him to play, I think he'd be better off playing as a small forward role, like trying to get at Peter Wright's feet rather than trying to be like the second option that potentially Waterman or Francis is even going to play that role. And I think that about Waterman too. Like if those guys are in the team, they're probably better off trying to get at the feet and crumb rather than trying to be another hit up target.
Yeah, he kind of went missing for me. In a game that was really open and we were penetrating that 50 and getting inside 50s and the guys were getting good looks at it, he really disappeared the whole game. And then when he did have his chance, he kind of blew it with one set shot and got one at the end. But yeah, I was pretty critical. I know you blokes wanted to drop him pretty early and I thought give him a couple of games, see what he's got. And yeah, I think I'm going to backtrack a little bit there. It's time to head back to the VFL.
To be fair, he was omitted, and then because of those 5 laid outs, he got the call up again. So I think the coaching staff have seen what we've seen, that he's not quite ready, needs to build a bit of confidence and then come back. But it was just that circumstance and he played. And the goal he did kick in the last quarter, like that was a clutch goal. Really important time for us. If he had missed that, I would have been swearing my head off. But I don't think he should play next week. But having said that, I think it was a good sign that he went back and kicked that goal.
Locke, do you want to kick us off with the ugly?
I've got lots. Nah. Let's look at this. Let's talk about some stats. All right. We are still bottom 4 for tackles, contested possessions, clearances, and inside 50s after the weekend. And I just want to highlight a few games throughout this year. Like, what would you guys just quickly just name them? What would you guys say are our 3 worst losses this year?
Round 1.
Geelong, Freo.
Yep. Western Bulldogs?
Yeah, that's a disappointing loss. Yep.
Okay. So in those games, we're either 0 out of 4 for those stats or 1 from 4, right? Tackles, contested possessions, clearances, inside 50s. Against the Hawks, we won all of those categories. So it's no surprise we're going to win the game if we're really in and under hard. We're getting the ball out of the stoppage easily. We're getting the ball forward easily. Like, we're going to win a lot of games that way. But if we go back to, and that's why it can be frustrating to have a win like that, if we go back to what we've seen for the majority of the year, we're losing all those stats. We're losing tackles. We're losing contested possessions, inside 50s, etc.
Titus O'Reilly tweeted today, and this is sent to me from Bill, that like the whatever flu's going around is better at selection than Ben Rutten, right? And there's kind of a little bit of truth in that. I guess like we've seen that he's been a bit more reluctant to maybe swing the axe at certain players, and hopefully maybe this shows that there are guys that, number one, are willing to actually do something with the opportunity they got. Like when we were out Guelphy and Durham, I was like, can we forfeit? Like, is it just worth forfeiting this game? Like, we're going to, like, our percentage is so bad already. This is just going to get even worse. But yeah, I guess in the end, it kind of shows what can be done, even if you don't have your preferred 22 on the park, which hopefully that does mean some of those like softer half drops to Medi sub actually like make it all the way down. Or if we're putting up piss poor performances, he is willing to throw around, 4 or 5 selection changes instead of just 1, right? Yeah.
I don't like too much instability in the team, but you can definitely make 2 or 3 changes if players aren't performing. And maybe Truck's trying to give certain players, a little bit more rope or leeway when he should be a bit harsher or stricter with them. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week. Like, I could easily name 4 players that should be dropped.
Right
and
now.
it depends who's free. Well, Ham, I think Baldwin, I think Zerk Thatcher will come out. Smith, I think, will come out. Although he did play well. Like, there's 4 players straight off the bat.
So what's the other, like the next ugly, I guess, is like, who knows what the deal is with our injury list? Like, we've kind of talked about blokes that have been 2 to 3 weeks out for the last 6 to 7 weeks. But then there's guys like Dev Smith. Aaron Francis has hardly been like in contention, like all of a sudden playing and like playing pretty well, like obviously capable of playing, but just not being played. And I guess on the back of that too, we've lost 5 players immediately before the bounce, and Tipper's name is still not anywhere near a page. Like, I think he's still so far away from obviously making it back. He's not even in the talks. If we lose 5 of not even our best, what are we at now? 36, and he's still not getting a call up. Did you watch the VFL, Russ?
No, I didn't.
They got shellacked anyway. I think quick VFL update. I think it was like 125 to 30 or something.
Yeah, all the players were playing first grade. They took took half the squad just to go play on Saturday night.
Alex Hurd kicked his first goal in the VFL. I think that was the one highlight. He might get a call up
over the goalpost, wasn't it? Goalpost high.
Goalpost high.
If Tom Hurd can't get a call up when half the list is missing, I think my prediction of him never playing AFL football might be right.
Never's a long time. You got any others, Russ?
I wouldn't say ugly, but actually, no, I think weird.
The chicken tandoori pizza you selected.
Your lock of the week each week, Russ.
But you got any more, Doc?
No, I want to hear Russ's. What do you got, Russ?
No, I think we covered most of them.
Got it.
I got 2 more for you. One, my pet peeve with the AFL at the moment. Alistair Lord doesn't even get on the game, gets a Gatorade shower. Doesn't even get on the ground, gets a Gatorade shower as a debut. That's fucking terrible. Shield did his best to try to get himself off with an ankle like 3 times and still wouldn't put Lord on. I think that is just the worst way to like debut. Like, your family's in the crowd and you just like warm up once or twice along the sidelines and that's it. So something needs to be done with that rule. And the second one I had was Lockie Laverde coming up to the second contest way too often, not impacting and getting caught out the back.
Yeah.
Actually, I do have one that's not really gameplay, but a bit bad. Heppel's interview after the game really rubbed me up the wrong way. I don't know, for someone to come out and call out everyone in the media for telling them that they're not doing well enough and they should be having better standards and not smiling after the games and whatnot. Mate, you won 1 game and it was a pretty ugly game to win. It's not really time to vindicate yourself now and start calling people out.
You think this is our West Coast versus Collingwood moment?
Yeah.
I agree with that, because it's sort of like, what have you actually proven? You beat a Hawks side that's going to finish in the bottom 6 teams. And although we had a number of outs, which makes our win more impressive, it doesn't move us into the top 8. It doesn't change our season. Like, put 3 wins in a row together and then start saying that.
Yeah.
Are you guys, after the effort that we saw and after the Gold Coast beat the Swans in Sydney, are you more confident than you were last week about the trip this week? And we'll obviously talk about this more on Thursday night, but just your preliminary thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you're going to be a little bit more optimistic.
So at what point are you happy for Dyson to start smiling again? 3 in a row? 2 in a row?
3 in a row, I think you can start making claims. That's about it.
So even if we beat Sydney in Sydney, Job still got plenty of work ahead. I mean, we obviously got plenty of work ahead, but
yeah, I'd like to see minimum 3.
So then we've got to go to Port and beat Port in Port.
There you go.
Okay, easy. We've done a little bit of the VFL update. I think we're pretty much all the way through it, boys.
As in everything we want to talk about.
Yeah. You got anything else?
Let's deep dive. No, going back to Laverde, his positioning is far too aggressive, and it was actually mentioned about Collingwood because Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe were playing a similar position, like well in front of their man, and the commentators were talking about that's a really good position a couple of seasons ago when the ball movement was slowed down a little bit. These days, it's getting into the forward 50 much quicker in most instances. So you actually want to play back shoulder or even like a man slightly behind the play like Melbourne do. And that way you can react to what's happening up the ground. Because each week, about 3 goals they're getting from almost the goal square because someone's getting out of the back of Laverde, and we don't have any player like closest to goal. How can that happen in our defensive 50? Like, someone should always be closest to goal versus their opponent.
Yeah, if you're going to come up to that contest, you have to impact that contest. Yeah. I completely agree. Thoughts, Russ?
Yeah, agree. Lockie was pretty good at pointing that out plenty of times in when we were watching on Saturday night, and it was amazing. I hadn't really noticed it too much, but yeah, I think you pointed out like 4 or 5 times, and I keep the first couple of games we watched this season, I kept saying, how can you just let a man just walk into the goal square? Then you're right, Laverde, and you could see it so clearly. He goes up forward, and then one marking contest out the back, bang, it's a quick goal because there's no one there. Hopefully the coaches see it, because it's pretty blatant if there's 3 blokes on a couch on Saturday night and drinking beers and seeing it. If the coaching panel's not seeing it and going through the tapes on Monday, I'm a bit worried.
Well, if it works out, it looks good, but we win the ball back in our defensive 50. And when it doesn't work out, they get an easy goal in the goal square. So it's almost not quite reward for effort. Like, you don't win it back enough to warrant the 3 or 4 goals out the back.
Boys, you all know how I feel about Harry Jones, but is Peter Wright a better forward than Max King?
Right now, absolutely.
Not yet.
Oh, God, what's he got to do, Locke?
King,
well,
kick 60?
Max King, if it wasn't for goal kicking woes, set shot woes, he would be on almost like 35 goals at the moment.
That's the fundamental skill of being a key forward.
Absolutely. 100%. But when Peter Wright gets 6 shots on goal every single week, which I would argue that King is getting at the moment, then I'll rate him as higher because he will kick more goals.
But hasn't that got more to do with who's giving him the service than, like, if Peter Wright's kicking at 100% efficiency, what else can you do?
Well, let's say he happens to have a week where he misses a couple, then it's not such a great game.
Well, what's he kicked for the year? 24-4 or something?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, he's so incredibly efficient. It's almost making him look slightly better than his season has been. He's had a great year, don't get me wrong.
Would you rank him above Tom Lynch?
No.
Even though Lynch is kicking 7, but he's kicking 4 out on the fulls and 3 behinds?
Tom Lynch is leading the Coleman.
But he's only converting at 50%. That's not good.
But he's had more of the ball because the team got more of the ball to him.
Yeah. They've also had
we're not rating the teams, we're rating the kickers.
150-point drubbing of West Coast, a depleted West Coast, where he should have kicked 15 and he's kicked 7. Like, what a bag.
Okay, well, every year we're going to start to award the Coleman not to the most goals, but to the 10th best because they had a better average.
I think if you kick at over 95%, there should be some special recognition.
Not going to happen.
Hang on. All right, just putting it out there, just asking. Another stat block that we talked about, Aaron Francis, his 2 goals on the weekend took him to a total career goal tally of 10. It's taking him 7 years in the system to kick 10 goals.
Yeah, I
He's
like
been
that
back for
stat.
most of the time, hasn't he?
Huh?
He's been on the back for most of his career, though.
Yeah, even still.
I've got one final stat or point I wanted to make, and it's something we've highlighted in recent episodes where we've talked about Snelling out, Langford out, Tip and Woody out. On the weekend of our forward line, they averaged 19 games experience. So our forward line is effectively kids. There was Ben Hobbs playing forward. There was Kane Baldwin. There was Nick Martin. Archie Perkins is one of the more experienced players in our forward 50, and he's in his second season. Nick Bryan, they sort of named, and he sort of played obviously like ruck forward. And then Francis, who's played 51 games. And even Peter Wright hasn't hit 100 games yet. So it just shows like how much leadership and experience we've lost without Snelling, Langford, Tip and Woody, Stringer right now. Yeah, huge outs.
10 tackles inside 50 for the game to 4 from Hawthorn. Like that, again, we talk about tackle count as being like your barometer of effort. That's what we need, because our system is broken, and winning covers a lot of those cracks. Like it does wallpaper, you're right. But the one thing that supports your defense more than anything is that high pressure inside forward 50, locking it in, because you're giving your defenders a break more than anything. The ball's not squirting straight out all the time. But again, we're starting to create a lot more of that perceived pressure and more chances at kicking goals, and more goals we're kicking is more scoreboard pressure. And it's just those little things that start to add up and add up and add up. And again, when we said, we probably were a little bit lucky with Hawthorn's inaccuracy, but we won all those similar stats against Collingwood, and we were so stiff that they didn't miss. So we probably were owed one, right? Like, that's footy. I guess that's why you play the game,
Yeah.
So good to see. Like some real positives. Like it's one win, but fuck, it's good to win against Hawthorn. I fucking hate Hawthorn. And number 2, it's good to see, like, okay, we've got a lot of work to do, but at least that baseline like level, which is work rate, has improved and has increased, and maybe the message is finally starting to get through. Like, we were, as sloppy as we were, it was such a better game to watch when we had the ball. We didn't do any of that slow shit, like kick to nothing in the pocket. There was none of this like backward fumble it around defensive 50, no intent going inside. That was the best game we played all year. And we're probably, with those goals, that very easy chances that we missed, we potentially did lose the opportunity to win that game by maybe 7 or 8 goals and actually give ourselves a favor on percentage. Because even if we win the next game and GWS lose, we only go up 1 spot on the ladder. We're tied for, I think it's like 11th, but we're the bottom of every team that's on 3 wins by a mile.
Right now, I couldn't care less about the ladder, but I want to see next week's effort. Yeah. Can we put it together for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, rather than it being like the Adelaide game where it's like, okay, that was better, and then you were shit the week after.
Yeah.
Yeah, historically, we come out, play well, and you got 3 weeks of shit, and then the media gets on us and they're like, all right, boys, let's get out there and do it. One good game of effort, and then next 3 weeks of shit again.
Thursday will be interesting, I think, with selection. Like, clearly Guelphy and Durham and probably even Waterman. Who else went out that I'm missing?
Kelly and Ridley.
Ridley, right? So you probably think of those five come in.
I think Waterman... I think it's a toss-up between Francis, Waterman, and Baldwin, to be honest.
Do you think Waterman would be stiff? Like, I think Francis, if he's good to play, like, I think I like him in there as preference to Waterman, but Waterman's equally been doing his role. Probably doesn't deserve to get dropped if he hadn't gotten sick.
I think Waterman comes in, but I think Baldwin definitely goes out.
Yeah, I think Francis stays in, Baldwin goes out.
And anyway, we'll talk selection on Thursday, lads, because we've got less than a minute to wrap it up before we get cut off. But have a good week. So much nicer to wake up. It would have ruined my Mother's Day. Cat would have had a terrible day if the Bombers had lost. All right, lads, have a good week.
Go Bombers.
Go Bombers.